Hi everyone, my name is Joseph and welcome to a review for Digimon Seekers Chapter 2, Hacker Leon WW Flight Airline 626. So Chapter 2 is now officially over. Technically it finished last weekend with this current weekend. Today is Sunday. Yesterday the intermission dropped. The reason why I didn't make this video, the review for it last week, was because I was waiting to see if maybe this intermission was an epilogue of some sort. It definitely is part of Chapter 2. But not part of the main Chapter 2. I would argue that it is acting as an epilogue. And in fact, that's why it's called an intermission. I personally do appreciate it. I was not expecting anything. The last time that Chapter 1 ended, there was a brief recess, a brief respite. And then a week later, the story started up again. Back then, it would release on a Sunday as well. But this time, it started releasing on a Saturday rather than a Sunday. So that was... it was unexpected to get an extra additional part of the story. The reason why I appreciate the intermission is because I think it does an amazing job of getting the reader situated for the headspace that all the characters, the protagonists, will be in for Chapter 3. What I mean by that is when Chapter 3 starts, we, the readers, could just go right into the story. No need to catch up with the professor, to catch up with what's going on with Leon, and so forth. And I would argue there, pardon my cat, I would argue there was some foreshadowing done as well. Chapter 1 really focused on EG. Chapter 2 focused on Leon. It was called Hacker Leon. And I'll argue that Chapter 3 is going to be focusing, is looking like the Digipolice. And the reason why I say that is because in the intermission, Professor Ruzhenji, he mentions Yolene, and I don't believe she is part of the Digipolice, and I believe she's the captain of the Digipolice. That's the part that I'm not 100% sure of. There might be someone above her. But she is a captain or a leader of some sort, for the Digipolice. So it wouldn't surprise me if we'll be following Yulene and EG as they try to figure out how to rescue Leon from his DMIA. In Chapter 2, I think, where Chapter 1 faltered, I think Chapter 2 really picked up and helped to strengthen it. Specifically, I'm talking about the translation. So where Chapter 1 really struggled was with the translation. Sometimes it affected the flow of the story. It affected the subject matter of the story, what was being delivered. And in Chapter 2, I was pleasantly and happily surprised to discover that the translation was better. There were still a couple moments here and there where I did question if the original was written in such a way, but not to the same degree with Chapter 1. That was really awesome. I'm hoping that this trend continues with Chapter 3 and forward. It's looking like it's no longer machine translated, or maybe parts of it is machine translated, then a human goes in and edits everything. Whatever it may be, the difference is noticeable and it is appreciated. In Chapter 2, while Chapter 1 I think did a good job of setting up the world and getting us introduced to all these characters, Chapter 2 did an amazing job of getting us invested in the characters within this said world. I was already a fan of EG, but now I can definitely say that I am a fan of him. He might be my favorite protagonist from all the Digimon properties. Logomon as well. I was warm towards Leon, but now discovering more about him, he's definitely up there as well. It was awesome to discover how he was such a determined individual. His determination, what could have been annoying, as it turned out, was part of the big reason why he is who he is, and the connections that he had to EG's past. I'm being a little bit broad on purpose in case one has not read Seekers. Hopefully, if this video encourages one to go read Seekers, I don't want to spoil too much of the story. And I was already enjoying the characters, enjoying the professor's character, but again, Chapter 2 made me enjoy him even more. Actually, that's not necessarily true. He wasn't in Chapter 2 too often, but when he was present, I think they did a good job of his characterization. He was mostly, he shined a lot in the intermission, for example. I really liked the actions that he did during the intermission. But yeah, Chapter 1 did a good job of introducing the story, and Chapter 2 did an amazing job of continuing the interest in that story. We'll see if this continues with Chapter 3. I personally think it will. I don't have too many complaints when it comes to the story so far. Just when it comes to minor possible translation issues here and there. One thing I did want to discuss though, and I could totally see why the story went the way that it did. And I talked about this in my specifically Digimon Seekers videos, but during the second to last part, my only complaint was I didn't like how EG made Logomon go into Hell Logomon so quickly. I personally would have much more preferred it if Logomon was successful in digivolving to his next level. But then EG just became too arrogant, cocky, and because of that, his emotions changed, causing Hell Logomon to go into causing Logomon to go into Hell Logomon. But with that being said, though, I could see why the story why it went the way that it did, because during the intermission, it gets revealed that Logomon, he had a rivalry with Postmon, whilst EG, on the other hand, what started off as a friendly rivalry turned into the territory of enemy versus enemy. EG's mindset was much more different compared to Logomon's mindset during that fight. So I think that's why they went the way that they did, because they went the path that I would have preferred. Essentially, EG forced Logomon to evolve, not because of his mindset towards Leon, but because of his own personal mindset. He got too arrogant and too cocky. So it's much more internalized versus right now where it's external. But I don't mind the external aspect because it says a lot about EG's characterization, and he's going to have to learn how to view someone as a rival and as a friend rather than letting that rivalry just turn to making one become an enemy. That's not a healthy way to live life. There's always going to be difference of opinions, and so that's why I don't really mind this external factor. But besides that, and then also during the intermission, I was a little bit confused about Logomon's attitude and behavior. The intermission was very heavy in terms of emotional weight, but Logomon wasn't really reflective of that. He was a little bit contradictory to what was being represented on the page, but it's not too much of an issue. I liked how it ended, even though he was a bit too positive. As the reader, I did appreciate that positivity because I think without it, this story would have ended quite darkly or too bitter. And I don't think Bandai Namco wants that. Would I recommend Digimon Seekers Chapter 2? Yes, I definitely would. I recommended Chapter 1. I'm recommending Chapter 2. So far, if one is a Digimon fan, they have nothing to worry about. Everything that makes Digimon is still present. It's all in here. If one was worried about the translation, especially because it was announced to be machine translated at first, don't be too concerned about that. Again, the translation is becoming sharper and more defined, especially with Chapter 2. I'm hoping that trend continues with Chapter 3. But even if it doesn't, again, the translation is beyond serviceable right now. It's doing what it needs to do. And again, I said beyond serviceable because if it was just serviceable, that would mean that it's just okay. But I don't think it's just okay. It's doing it's doing a fine job. It could be greater, but it's doing a fine job, better than okay. The only aspects that's missing, obviously, are just like the sounds and the music and everything like that. But what gets sacrificed in regards to that, I think, gets traded for some positivity. Like, for example, since it's in a text format, I do believe the story is able to get a bit more darker than it typically. Let me start over. The story is allowed to become darker and go to places where the Digimon story was not allowed to go to due to being on the TV format. For example, I really love the description of the fight between Logomon and Koichimon. The pool of blood that was made from the static, it really was being described as dripping as blood-like and pooling at the floor, a static black-white substance. That was really cool. It reminded me of like the Vicks milk from Destiny 2. Or also as well, how distraught that EG is during the intermission, so distraught that he periodically shouts and yelps. That's a little bit dark. I don't think that's ever been showcased in any of the Digimon properties in the past before. So despite some sacrifices being made because Digimon Seekers is not in the anime format but the written format, there's some strengths that it picks up on. I am really enjoying the written format. And as we continue with Digimon Seekers, I personally am hoping that after Seekers is over, that Bandai Namco stops with the written format. It'll be really cool if they took a hand in maybe even like a novel format. I think that'd be awesome. They already have a light novel. Let's step it up a little bit and just do a novel complete. Just a complete novel, just without any pictures. I wouldn't mind that personally. So do I recommend Digimon Seekers Chapter 2? Yes, I do. If you are reading it, please let me know if you're enjoying it still. If you stopped reading it, did you just stop completely? What reason did you stop for during Chapter 2? Or if you did stop but you continued reading because of what you've heard about Chapter 2, what detail convinced you to continue to pick up the story again? Thank you so much for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. Have a prodigious day, and I'll see everyone when Chapter 3 begins next week.